This is Undaunted Pursuit Podcast.
You know who made it?
Up is where we're going, and we want you to come with us. All right, shoot. Man, I was calling you. I've got a little sweat going on here because I'm just trying to get everything set up and ready to go for tonight's interview or this week's interview. And so I'm trying to sit down. Of course, as you know, I'm in the dungeon studio or the under the stairs studio, and here I am trying to get cross-legged and everything. You're about to get on, and here I am like, I pulled a hammy, and I was cramping up trying to sit down here and get settled in, but oh my goodness. And we got to make this intro quick because we got to do sound check in the next room for this interview. And anyway, but man, hey, we've got an exciting episode this week, don't we, Marshall?
We do. Yeah, we got something pretty special, pretty interesting guest we have for this week. Pretty excited to see what he has to say. Just kind of hear a little bit about him, his ministry, and his life. Kind of see what all's going on.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting. I've invited Christian in on this too because we're just gonna go ahead and say it. We've got Dr. Kent Hovind coming onto our podcast this week, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, the stuff he has to talk about, it's not something I've really ever touched on, but I'm interested to hear a little bit more about it.
But it is everything that you've touched on. I mean, you're a creationist, right? You believe God created the heavens and the earth, and He created everything, and so that's what He's all about. That's what we're going to get into. We're going to get into this. Well, I don't want to say too much. We'll get into it, but I'm also excited to be able to shoot an intro episode. Normally, I'm just doing this solo, introducing our guest beforehand, and I'm anxious to do it with you. Doing this beforehand, so that's really cool too. So I'm jazzed tonight, if you can't tell.
Oh yeah.
But so guys, hey, thanks for tuning in to Undaunted Pursuit podcast. And like we said, Dr. Kent Hovind is our guest this week, and this will be one you don't want to miss. I guarantee you. So we're gonna get into it. So stay tuned. We'll see you guys on the other side. Okay. Hey, guys. Welcome back to Undaunted Pursuit Podcast. Like we said in the intro, we have a very special guest, Dr. Kent Hovind, on our podcast. And I'll introduce myself. I'm Aaron, Dr. Hovind. I'm Aaron Shadysky. I host this podcast along with Marshall Massey and Christian Hall. So we're all from all over the country.
All right. It was an honor to be with you.
Yes, sir. It's an honor to have you on here.
Nice to meet you.
All right. Well, I'll kick things off. Dr. Hovind, again, hey, thank you for being on here. And I know that there is not enough time to get into this, everything that we want to talk with you about tonight. You've had quite the life of ministry and public speaking. And this is not going to be your traditional debate, because I think that I can speak for all of us in saying that we are generally going to agree on about everything. I've watched some of your videos online, and I think that we can agree. I think we're all creationists here, and but I would like to learn just a little bit more about you, about what you are doing, and we'll just kind of kick it off with that.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. My name's Kent Hovind. I've been a Baptist preacher 50 years. My throat's about gone. I've been talking a lot. We have visitors come to our Dinosaur Adventure Land in Lenox, Alabama. We have visitors who come from all over the world. It's all free. Come on down and visit. Anyway, I taught high school science and math for 15 years. And in 1989, I started a ministry called Creation Science Evangelism. I defend the Bible as being scientifically accurate. God made everything in 6 days, just like he said in the Ten Commandments, which means dinosaurs had to live with Adam and Eve. They did not live millions of years ago. Done 362 debates against atheists at universities all over. I'll be glad to take on 100 more. They may be smarter than me, but I'm right, they're wrong. God's right, they're wrong.
Yeah.
See, I just want to strengthen your faith in the Word of God. Someone gave us 140 acres in Lenox, Alabama, an old gravel pit. And we're building a Christian camp, a museum, a science center. It's incredible. You come down. We're straight north of Pensacola, 70 miles. Come pay us a visit. It's all been free. We have 25 cabins people stay in for free. If you stay too long, we'll give you a hammer, put you to work.
Great.
Yeah, you can get a hold of us. I got quite a few of my... Is it backwards? It's backwards to me anyway. Our website is drdino.com, D-R-D-I-N-O. Our phone number, 855-BIG-DINO. You can call that anytime. I'm extension 3 if you want to talk to me. If you want to schedule a debate or schedule me to be on a program, call extension 4. Joseph will get it. So, yeah, we just want to defend the Bible. The Bible is true. And I'm sick and tired of the devil using God's own creatures, the dinosaurs, to turn people away from God. You get a 4-year-old kid, ask him, when did dinosaurs live? They'll say, millions of years ago. Right. They can't even read yet. But they've already been brainwashed into believing against God's word because of the dinosaurs. And I think God ought to get the glory for the dinosaurs. He made everything in 6 days. So anyway, I take questions all the time. Like I said, I've done a lot of debates against atheists. So I think I'm ready for most of the stuff. If you want to bring it on.
I'm sure you are. I don't know that I can totally agree with that I follow along the same lines of thinking that dinosaurs are not millions of years old. I've preached that to my kids ever since they were born. And you're not going to find an atheist in this bunch right here.
No.
Well, if you look at the Bible in Genesis chapter 5, it says the people before the flood came, like Adam and Eve and these people, everybody lived to be 900 years old. I use this chart quite often. This is the dates right from the Bible, Genesis 5. Yeah. Adam lived to be 930. Then the flood came and something changed, and lifespans dropped off to 400, 200, 100. You go to Genesis 11, you get the rest of the dates. We have these charts, heavy laminated, if you want to use them for placemats when your skeptic friends come for lunch. That'll fire. On the back, it tells all about Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon probably formed in a week, not millions of years. Grand Canyon's a washed-out dam. So we produce a lot of videos here, like 25 million of them in 42 languages. My seminar series is 18 hours long. You can get it for $50. When you're done, you return it, get your money back. I started my ministry 35 years ago, and I would loan videos out. I learned right away, Christians don't steal, but they borrow and never return. So I said, hold it. So that's why we say, look, you can buy it for $50, 18 hours, watch it, copy it 1,000 times, just don't sell it. And then return it, get your money back. No problem. Okay.
Well, shoot. Hey, guys, if you, Marshall and Christian, if you guys have any, want to interject at any time, please do so. But I'm a young earther too. And how do we, Dr. Hovind, back that up? How do we, we've already kind of gotten into that a little bit as far as like we can look at God's word and see all the way back. One of my biggest things in arguing it is that, me and my wife talk about this all the time. It's like, there wasn't an iron age. They had iron tools from the very beginning. If you look back in the Bible, they were forging iron long. Am I safe to say that even back around Adam and Eve?
Yeah, it says Adam's grandson was an artificer in brass and iron.
Yes.
Yeah. Adam lived to be 900 years old. How much could you learn in 900 years?
Right.
Plus, he came pre-programmed from the hand of God, fully loaded computer. The day he was made, Adam could walk, talk, name the animals, and get married. I think God put a lot of stuff in his brain. I think they knew all kinds of things. They might even look at the technology we have today and say, that's primitive. Why do you do it like that? Here, watch this. They might know things we don't even dream about. So I think that it was very different. If you look at the Bible dates, they add up to the earth being about 6,000 years old, not millions of years old. Now people say, are you a young earther? I say, well, 6,000 is not young. It's hard to think about Columbus 500 years ago trying to find this place. Okay, 6,000 is a long time. So I believe the Earth is 6,000 years old. But billions is ridiculous, ludicrous. There's hundreds of ways to prove the Earth cannot be billions of years old. My video number 1 of my series, I start off with that, showing scientific ways how the Earth cannot be billions of years old. It's called the age of the Earth. I show probably 30 or 40 different ways to say, look, this can't be billions of years old. If I told you I had an ink pen that was, here, I got a Sharpie pen, I believe it's 5,000 years old. Could you prove I'm wrong? Easy. It's made of plastic. Plastics weren't invented until 1907.
Right.
Well, that just that one fact proved my 5,000-year claim is wrong. I could find out when Sharpie Corporation became a company. Find out, can you? When did Sharpie start? That would prove my 5,000-year claim is wrong. So if somebody claims they find a fossil and say, wow, that's billions of years old, I say, excuse me, I think there's lots of ways to prove the Earth cannot be that old. So I start off my video number 1 showing, look, it can't be billions of years old. Then video number 2 is about the Garden of Eden. What was it like? Why did they live to be 900 years old?
Yeah.
What was different back then? Video number 3 is all about dinosaurs. Because if the Bible's right, in the 10 Commandments, God said, I apologize for my throat. I've been talking a lot this week.
No, you're okay.
No, you're fine.
In the 10 Commandments, God said he made everything in 6 days because he made everything. He said, honor the Sabbath because he made everything in 6 days. Did you find out, brother? When did Sharpie start?
Yeah, the company started in 1857, but the Sharpie itself wasn't until
1964? The Sharpie was invented. So if I claim my Sharpie is 5,000 years old, it's pretty easy to prove I'm wrong. And if somebody wants to claim the Earth is billions of years old, it's very easy to prove that's simply not possible. But time, long time, billions of years, is the pacifier that atheists love to keep them from crying.
Right. And it's the same thing with this carbon dating. Now, I don't exactly know how to prove or disprove, but I've always had this mindset of thinking that, they're measuring, when they carbon date, so like a lot of people use that. It's like, oh, well, they carbon dated this to millions of years ago. Well, what are they measuring that up against? What, they're the measurement is set by humans to that millions year mark. So now you've had this timeline established by humans, not by what the age is. I don't know. Maybe you could explain this whole carbon dating and how it could be flawed.
Well, if you watch my video number 7, you can see a long explanation, but the short explanation. Back in 1830, 200 years ago, a guy made up the absolutely stupid idea that we call today this geologic column. They gave the layers of the Earth a different name, like Jurassic, Triassic, Mississippian. It's all baloney. They say the top layer is younger. I say, really? Would you please tell me where it came from? How can this dirt be younger? Did it come from outer space? Every speck of dirt on the planet is the same age. Whether it's 6,000 or 6 trillion, it doesn't matter. It's all the same age. They say, well, that's the date it got moved over here. Well, that doesn't change the age of it. If I shuffle a deck of cards, is the top card younger? No. If I flip these sand art toys over, are the layers different ages? No. Every grain of sand was in here at the same time. So there's no such thing as a geologic column. But what happened, in 1830, they started teaching that the layers are different ages, and they gave them names like Jurassic and Triassic. It's all baloney. It does not exist anywhere in the world except their imagination in the textbook. So then in 1950s, they invented carbon dating. Willard Libby at the University of Chicago. Carbon dating is based on some very obvious assumptions. Put my slide up there, brother. If you walked into a room and found a candle burning on the table, and I asked you the simple question, when was it lit? You say, I don't know. It was burning when I got here. Well, let's do some empirical science. Let's measure it. We measure the candle. We measure it 4,000 different ways. We get official micrometers. We find out the candle is 7 inches tall. Nobody argues the candle is 7 inches tall. When was it lit? That doesn't tell me, does it? Let's measure how fast it's burning. Suppose we measure it with an Olympic stopwatch and we find out it's burning an inch an hour. Now we got 2 facts nobody disputes. It is 7 inches tall. It's burning an inch an hour. When was it lit? You still can't tell me unless you make some assumptions. How tall was it? I don't know. Has it always burned at the same rate? I don't know. There's no way to tell that. So with carbon dating, they're assuming they know what the initial content was. They're assuming they know it's always decayed at the same rate. We know there are things that affect the rate of carbon decay. We know there's no way to know what was in it when it started. And if the Bible is true, and the earth had a protective canopy of ice above the atmosphere, like the Bible says there was water above the firmament, and it says clearly the birds fly in the firmament. So there used to be ice or water above the atmosphere. That would block out all UV light and would prevent the formation of a lot of carbon-14. So if you dig up a fossil from the flood, it's going to have almost no carbon-14, and you're going to date it as billions of years old when it just was in a different atmosphere, that's all. So they find all kinds of wild dates with carbon dating. I got examples on my video number 7. The lower leg of a mammoth was dated at 15,000 years old, but the skin was 21,000. This is the same animal.
Yeah.
That was back in 49 when they first invented carbon dating. Here, living mollusk shells, clam shells, dated at 2,300 years old. Guys, they're still alive. Okay.
Yeah.
See, we really date things based upon the layer they're found in. And I got a ton of stuff on that here. Freshly killed seal, carbon dated 1,300 years old. They just killed it. It just doesn't work. Okay. I think it's if you find a fossil in the dirt and take it to a laboratory or university and say, how old is this clam? They would first question they ask, where did you find it? What difference does that make? Well, we need to know what layer it came from so we can date it by the geologic column. That's how things are dated, not carbon dating. If then you do carbon dated and it doesn't match the geologic age, they'll date it again. They might have to redate the thing 5 times to get the number they want. So it's crazy. Watch my video 7. I got a lot more on that topic.
Right. Well, because excuse me. Sorry. Because I think I've heard before that we have observed, and I say we as humans, in modern age, have observed fossilization as quick as a matter of weeks, if I'm correct. I think we have. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I cover, and we have a museum here at Dinosaur Adventure Land. It's pretty incredible. You need to come watch. But we got all kinds of fossilized things. We have a fossilized pickle. A guy had an old farmhouse on his property, and the roof was falling apart. The building was falling apart, and the lid to the old pickle jar rusted, and everything evaporated. And the inside, the pickle turned to stone. I've got it in our museum. There was a guy died in Tennessee. They buried Grandpa back in 1884. I think it was 12 or 14 years later, his wife died. So they dug a hole next to Grandpa to bury Grandma. And water soaked into the hole. And they said, oh, no, Grandpa's in the water. So they dug up his casket to move him to a new place. And they opened up the casket, and Grandpa had fossilized, turned to stone in 14 years. So there's lots of examples of what we call rapid petrification. Here's a fossil clamshell in the closed position. Now, wait a minute. It's closed. When clams die, they open right away. How do you get a petrified closed clam? They find these on top of Mount Everest. These are found all over the world. Petrified closed clams. Well, apparently it had to be buried alive and buried fast. So I think during Noah's flood, the tide going up and down would mean the water's rushing in and out. Sideways movement of water is going to make layers like crazy. All the layers to the earth form sideways. They are not millions of years old. The geologic column doesn't exist. So I think the clams got buried quickly in Noah's flood. And then it might take 10 years for them to turn to stone. I know there's many examples of 10, 15 years or less, things fossilizing. I don't know if maybe under pressure. I know under pressure they can make coal in 20 minutes. They can make oil in 20 minutes. 24 hours to turn to a fossil? In the lab, they can do it in 24 hours, fossilize it.
There we have it.
There you go. Okay.
And then then you get into the debate of what the atmosphere or what the conditions were like pre-flood and then post-flood, which is why that's the big argument between why the ancients, the ancient peoples lived so much longer than the other, because the atmosphere is completely different. There was more oxygen back then than there was post-flood, and so many times you see that we don't even account for that as a human race in looking back in time.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer in what's called the Canopy Theory, that there used to be a canopy of ice above the water, above the air. The Bible says there was water above the firmament, and the firmament's where the birds fly. Here, I'll show you right here. Slide number 209. I have about 50,000 slides, so it kind of helps if you ask the questions in the same order I got the answer. It says in Genesis chapter 1, the birds fly in the firmament. God said, let there be a firmament and let it divide the water from the water. How does the air divide the water from the water? Some people say it must be the dirt. Well, the dirt keeps the water from the water, but this says the air keeps the water from the water. The birds fly in the firmament. Paul said he was caught up to the third heaven. There are three heavens mentioned in the Bible, and heavens plural. Genesis 1:1 should be heavens singular if you got the right Bible. If your Bible says heavens plural, throw it away. Get a real Bible like the King James. So God divided the water which was under the firmament, to be the air, from the water which was above the firmament. Praise him, you waters that be above the heavens. So anyway, I think the whole earth was like surrounded with a crystalline canopy like a greenhouse, and that's what explains why they lived so long. 2 Peter said the scoffers are ignorant of how God made the earth standing out of the water and in the water. There used to be water under the crust of the earth and water above over the head. I'll get into all this some other time. But if you watch my seminar, 18 hours long, I cover a billion things. So the layers today has 7 layers to the atmosphere, 6 layers to the atmosphere. I think there used to be a 7th layer, a layer of ice above the air. That would squeeze the air down into maybe 10 miles. Right now, the air goes out about 50 miles, okay? If you squeezed all the air down into 10 miles, you wouldn't feel anything except a little bit greater pressure, which you quickly get used to. I climbed Mount Rainier when I was, 30 years old. I got up there. Mount Rainier is not that tall. But man, I could hardly breathe up there. The air's too thin. People that climb Mount Everest 5 miles up, you have to bring oxygen usually. It's real rare for somebody to be able to climb it without oxygen. It's only 5 miles. Well, if you go up 50 miles right now, it's 100 below zero. 6 miles up, and again 50 miles up, 100 below zero. So if the earth had a canopy of ice above the water, like all the Jews have taught that it did, it could be held up like an inflatable building. It could be held up by the Meissner effect, a magnetic field, because super cold ice is magnetic. So it would be levitated by the Earth's magnetic field, or maybe both, air pressure and magnetic field. Just watch my video for much more on that. Anyway, this permanent ice is magnetic. The Jews have always taught. Here's Josephus from 2,000 years ago. He said, when God made the earth, on the second day, he set the heaven above the universe, surrounding it with ice. Josephus, he placed a crystalline firmament around the world, and it was 3 fingers thick. Some of the ancient Jewish books say it was 2 fingers thick. How they know that, I have no idea. But I'm sure Jews fight over everything, so I'm sure they split the synagogues, started the church of the 3 fingers, the church of the 2 fingers. I don't care, okay? But there was a crystal canopy above. On the second day, God brought forth 4 creations. Let's see, the firmament is not the same as the heavens of the first day. This is from a book called The Legend of the Jews. The crystal stretched over the heads of the Hayat. There was a crystalline firmament, 2 or 3 fingers thick. Well, that would block UV light. That would also explain where the Ice Age fits in. If the Earth indeed had a crystal sphere around it, and the fountains of the deep broke up and shot up and shattered that crystal canopy, it would be sucked into the North and South Pole, because super cold ice is magnetic. And it's very interesting. Just Google Ice Age, not the movie Ice Age, okay? But if you look, the Earth has a real North Pole where we spin around. It also has a magnetic North Pole up in Canada. The compass points to the magnetic North Pole. The Ice Age centers around the magnetic North Pole. I think at the beginning of the flood, Noah's in the ark, God shuts the door, the fountains of the deep break open, shooting stuff up into and shatter the canopy. Super cold ice to get sucked in and dumped on the poles, probably snowing 10 feet a minute. This explains why the animals are found frozen standing up. Frozen mammoths, which is a big hairy elephant, frozen standing up, food still in its mouth, food in its stomach, did not rot. It's all frozen. The meat is still edible today.
Yeah.
So I think it had to be frozen rapidly, 4 or 5 hours. So on video number 6, I cover the Hovind theory, what I think happened, what caused the flood, where'd the water come from, where'd it go, what did it do while it was here. We'll talk for 2 days on that if you'd like. Anyway, so I think the crystal canopy overhead answers a lot of the questions. Of,
Sure. Interesting. That's an interesting theory.
Mhm.
Christian, I think you had a question there.
I mean, he kind of answered it, but like I had always read Genesis 1, seeing that watery layer as just clouds. Like we know clouds hold water, and it's between waters, the water on the earth. And so that was kind of my thought process the whole time.
Except the clouds are not above the atmosphere, they're in the atmosphere. It says clearly in Genesis, the water was above the atmosphere.
I guess I just never really made that delineation. I just thought, and same with Moses or Noah, there had never been rain before. So I just see this correlation with this abundance of moisture up in the sky between heaven and us, or these different layers that they're speaking of. But that's what is it, in verse 8, God called the vault sky. And God said, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear. So that's just how I've always viewed it.
Well, I think, first of all, you need to get a King James Bible. God promised he would preserve his word. Okay, where is it? I'd like to hold it, okay? It took me a long time studying this topic. I've got all the other Bible versions right here beside me. I collect them. And my mama was good at any time a new version came out, she'd go buy it and give it to us. Oh, here, son, read this one, read this one, read this one. They're different. We sell a book on our website, drdino.com, called Things That Are Different Are Not the Same. King James Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heaven, singular. Look at Genesis 1:1 in yours. It'll be heavens, plural. You can't even go 7 words into the Bible before you find a difference. If you got your Bible there, turn to the book of Acts, chapter 8, and I'll show you something interesting. Is it something you can do real quick there, brother? Acts chapter 8. Read verse 36 to me. Philip and the eunuch are riding in the chariot, and they stop by some water, and the eunuch says, hey, here's some water. Can I get baptized? Let's say Acts 8:36. You have it there? Okay, read verse 37 to me.
37 says, Philip said to him, if you believe with all your heart, you may. And he replied, I do believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God.
You have verse 37. That's wonderful. Many new Bible versions left out the verse altogether. It's just gone. They go from 36 to 38 because they believe in baptizing babies. That verse says you can't get baptized unless you're a believer. Very good. What version is that you've got there?
I read out of the Amplified.
Okay. Well, if they put verse 37 back in, congratulations. That's wonderful. Anyway, so if you're going to measure or build a building, first thing you got to agree on is what's the standard? What's a standard foot? What's a standard inch? Let's come to agreement. What are we going to measure with? Okay. And I think before you get into any theological discussion, you got to decide, okay, which Bible are we going to use? Because there are differences. Some are pretty serious, some are pretty minor, but there's about 200 verses left out of most of the new versions of the Bible. And I cover that on video number 7. And I show some of the problems with the new. I don't fight people that use other versions. I'd rather have them read that than Playboy. So, it's not, but so it's a gradient thing. But I think I'm thrilled they're reading their Bible. But I think if you're going to be serious, you're going to have to get King James. But King James says there was water above the firmament. Psalm 24 says he founded the earth upon the seas and established it upon the floods, and he layeth up the depth in storehouses. Psalm 33. So anytime it talks about the deep, cast out into the deep, it's always referring to the ocean or the sea. So the ocean, what's now in the oceans, used to be stored in the crust of the earth. And when the fountains of the deep broke open, the water went shooting out, probably because of the great pressure of maybe 10 miles of rock on top of it. It would launch things out into space and shatter the canopy. The canopy being super cold ice, it'd be sucked in and dumped mostly on the poles. And it'd go shooting out toward the equator like a glacier, an avalanche, and finally ran out of gas in southern Illinois. But there's evidence that glaciers came all the way down to southern Illinois. Yep. So I think the ice age came at the beginning of the flood, and which means when Noah got off the ark, when Noah gets off the ark a year later, ice caps were still huge. It would take 400 years for that ice to melt back to where it is today. Well, wait, if the ice caps are bigger, that means a whole lot of water is trapped in the ice, which means the oceans are smaller. If the oceans are smaller, that means the continents are bigger. You could walk anywhere in the world for the first few hundred years after the flood because the ice hadn't melted back. As it melts back, it releases the water into the oceans, and the oceans come up. That's why all the continents have a continental shelf. In Pensacola, Florida, you can walk out 100 miles before it gets 100 feet deep. Between Russia and Alaska, the Bering Strait, that Bering Strait up here is 60 miles wide and generally about 60 feet deep. If you lowered the oceans 100 feet, everything's connected. You could walk to Australia. Google continental shelf around Indonesia. That water's usually 30 feet deep everywhere. You lower the ocean 200 feet, and they average 12,000 feet deep. Take out 200 feet out of 12,000. Freeze it. Stick it on the poles. Make the ice caps bigger. Oceans are smaller. You could walk anywhere in the world. They probably had 300 or 500 years to go anywhere they wanted as the water's slowly coming up. Oceans are getting deeper because the ice is melting. That's why some animals are trapped on their islands. The kangaroos apparently ended up stuck in Australia. Water came up. They can't escape. Okay, let's just have babies right here. So I think the spread of animals after the flood would be easy. So same for the people. Walk anywhere you wanted. That's why when Columbus came over here, planted his flag, the Indians said, "What are you doing in our yard?" You know, they already lived here.
So you don't subscribe to the whole Pangea and the splitting of the continents. You're saying the continents are where they were, maybe moved a little bit, and you could just walk between them?
Well, the shape of the continent is a pure coincidence based on the water level. Okay? People ask me, do you think South America and Africa were connected? I say they're still connected right now. Aren't they? Underwater, isn't there a solid crust under the ocean too? Sure. I think the continents are moving some. I don't argue with that. I think they're still moving right now. I think the Earth is busted up like an eggshell. There are fault lines everywhere. San Andreas Fault, the Hayward Fault, all this stuff. And I think that's where most of the volcanoes and earthquakes appear, along these fault lines. So yes, I think the Earth is cracked up right now, and it probably happened at the beginning of the flood when the fountains of the deep broke open. And some of the plates are still shifting and moving. But as far as moving apart, like Pangea, I don't believe that for 1 second. If my house and the neighbor's house would fit perfectly if you slid them together, does that prove they were connected? No. It's a coincidence. The shape of the continent is a coincidence based on the water level. If you raise or lower the ocean a few hundred feet, everything changes. Just Google continental shelf around England. The English Channel, we had to go across on D-Day to fight, against the Germans in France. It's 30 miles wide and about 50 feet deep from here to that back wall. So if you lower the ocean 200 feet, England would be part of France, making the British very upset. They don't want to be French.
Who does?
Yes. Good question. Use that one.
Okay, so
the other question, I had one other one, and it was kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier, Aaron, on the metallurgy. And I was going to ask Dr. Hovind, do you put any basis in the Book of Enoch? Because I know there's things like that, Azazel, who came down from heaven and taught these kind of skills, how to forge swords. I think it talks about like teaching women to use makeup. There's all these kind of weird things that came out. And I wonder if you use the Book of Enoch to kind of form some of your theories or support for what you believe.
There are actually 3 books of Enoch, Enoch 1, 2, and 3. Are they top shelf or somewhere around here? Book of Enoch. I've got them here somewhere. And the book of Josephus, I see that one. I think they're ancient historical books. They're not inspired of God. I've written 67 books. I don't claim any of them are flawless or inspired. The Bible is inspired. Here's the book of Josephus. We got Enoch in here somewhere. Is it down there? Okay. But anyway, I think they're interesting reading. They're ancient history. There may be some nuggets you can get out of there, but I wouldn't trust them as being inspired of God.
Right.
Okay.
But do they support your kind of your thought processes as they explain what took place early days on Earth?
What I've read of it, I haven't read all 3 of them, the whole thing, but yes, so far I think it gives a good explanation. Ancient man was living to be 900 years old. He was probably much smarter than people today. Adam came pre-programmed from the hand of God. I mean, he could walk, talk, name all the animals first day. And then he lived 900 years after that. There's no telling what God taught him. And Adam lived long enough to meet his great grandson. Noah's daddy probably knew Adam. Noah's son Shem lived long enough to know Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You won't see this unless you graph out the dates found in Genesis 5 and 11. You say, whoa, Shem could have known Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? He could tell them about before the flood, what it was like. Different world back here. That's where they lived to be 900. See, God designed the world to be inhabited. Today, only 3% of the world is habitable. 70% is underwater, 10% under ice caps today, 10% under deserts. 3% of the world is habitable. That's not the way God made it. What we're seeing is a junkyard compared to what Adam and Eve saw. It was a perfect world before the flood came. The flood destroyed it. So we're seeing a junkyard. So if Adam came back today and look around and say, what happened to these trees? They're tiny. I think if the whole world was habitable, no oceans, probably smaller seas, but no oceans, mostly lakes and ponds and seas, not oceans. And livable, you could go to the North Pole, plant a garden, South Pole, plant a garden. If the Earth were not tilted over 23.5 degrees, if it were straight up and down as it circles the sun, everybody would get 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of darkness every day. That's called equinox. It happens now in the spring and in the fall. If the Earth were not tilted and while it was spinning in the original creation, everything would be even temperature. It'd be summertime all the time, or springtime all the time, everywhere. Then I think the flood, with the water from underneath coming to the surface and the crust then sinking in, that would speed up the Earth a little bit by shrinking the mass to the middle and maybe make it wobble. And today it's still wobbling some, but it's tilted over generally 23.5 degrees. That's why we have the seasons, summer, winter, springtime, fall. So I think that probably pre-flood, it was perfect, designed to be inhabited, like God said. The flood wrecked a lot of things, okay? And so now we live like in a junkyard. I think I got off track on your question. I don't know of anything in Enoch that contradicts the Bible or contradicts our theory. Enoch has introduction. The 3 different books have internal contradictions. Most people who study it would say, well, it's good history, it's an interesting book, but it's not inspired scripture.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
So I guess that whole explanation, Dr. Hovind, kind of concretes the fact that we can all agree that the Earth is round and not flat. A relatively popular opinion arising these days. Have you noticed that?
Oh yeah, brother, it frustrates me. I've been to all 50 states and 37 countries. Kansas is flat. The rest of it is
round. Right. So tell me this. You've throughout the years have debated many of what the world would consider intellectuals. And did you ever see yourself doing that? I know you said you started off as a high school teacher, and did you ever see yourself doing this?
I never dreamed it, brother. As a young child, I wanted to. My dad was an engineer at Caterpillar Tractor Company, electrical engineer. He was a sergeant in the Marines in World War II, only survivor of his platoon. He came home, got married, had 3 boys and a girl. He decided, I'm going to teach my kids everything. And my mom was a kindergarten teacher, taught us to read early and read fast. And they instilled in us the desire to learn everything. I wanted to learn everything. When I was in 4th or 5th grade, I read the whole encyclopedia set. I memorized the capital of every country. Name a country, I'll tell you the capital.
Somebody.
Nobody got name any country in the world.
Uganda.
Starts with a U. Capital U. That's what it starts with, okay?
Okay.
Capital. It'll take you a while to figure that one out.
I got it.
Okay. When I began reading and studying, when I got saved at age 16, I started reading my Bible and realized right away, hey, something's wrong. I'm being taught in school. I majored in math and science, ended up teaching at 15 years. I said, I'm being taught the Earth is billions of years old, and the Bible says the Earth is about 6,000 years old. Somebody is wrong. I'm going to find out who it is. And I started reading all the great books by Henry Morris and Dwayne Gish and the creation scientist of the day. I became convinced the Earth is about 6,000 years old, and it was just a hobby of mine to study this kind of stuff. When I moved to Pensacola, the neighbor kid said, hey, would you like to take the paper? I said, no, I don't have a parakeet. It's the only thing it's good for. And so finally, he said, if you had an extra, he'd throw it in the yard once in a while. An article came out in the paper that said dinosaur bones found in Montana from 80 million years ago. I said, somebody's got to stop this. So I wrote my first ever letter to the editor. I said, dear editor, the dinosaur bones are not millions of years old. They drowned in the flood in the days of Noah. The earth is about 6,000 years old. Dinosaurs always lived with man. Reptiles never stopped growing. When people lived to be 900, the reptiles got 50 feet long. It's no big deal. Well, they published my letter to the editor and started a war in Pensacola. The atheists were writing in, and I was writing back and forth. Finally, some students at the University of West Florida in Pensacola said, would you come debate one of our professors? I said, I've never had a debate in my life except with my wife. I lose those every time. How many know what I'm talking about? I said, no, sure. Okay, so I did my first ever debate. I've now had 362. I've never had a class in debate. I don't know what the rules are and all this. I just know God's right. Evolution is stupid. And I'll take on any of them. No, I never dreamed it'd be. I began getting so many calls. Please come speak at our church. Come speak at our school. It just evolved into a full-time ministry before I knew what was happening.
Wow.
And the guy called me 8 years ago and loved my videos. He bought this property here in Lenox, Alabama, 140 acres, $250,000. Just gave it to us.
Wow.
And so we've been building up here for the last 8 years. I tell people we don't really have a plan. What I do, I eat a lot of pizza with peanut butter on it before I go to bed. And you wake up at 2 a.m. with wild ideas. That's how I got. That's how I got my daughter. But that's it. So all the stuff we build around here, we have it's amazing. You ought to come see the place. We have some cool science lessons. We have zip lines across the lake. We have 17 lakes and ponds for fishing. It's amazing. The fishing here I'm not a fisherman. One guy caught a fish out of here. Let's see, this way. That fish was that far from the boat. Just the picture weighed 12 pounds. It took four guys to carry the picture.
Yeah.
That's a big It's all fresh on it. The only problem is the well water. Yeah. We got well water, and I taught biology 15 years, and if you drink well water, your babies will be born naked. So be prepared.
Oh, man. Dr. Hovind, have you done any work with Dr. Carl Baugh? I think. Are you familiar with him at all?
Good friend of mine. Love his work. Yeah, I know him well. He's getting pretty old now. I think he's 87. He's up there.
Yeah.
But he does great work in Glen Rose, Texas. Yeah, love what he does. Highly recommend his work.
I think one thing I remember, I saw him once when I was a kid, and I was just fascinated by his work in, what was that? It was some sort of creation model, or almost like I want to say a terrarium, but he called it something different. But it was showing how creation, I can't remember
the Hyperbaric Chamber?
Something like that.
Hyperbaric, yeah. We've got a hyperbaric chamber here, which reminds me we got to find out if they had a rip in it. They didn't show it up yet. They did? Oh, okay. High pressure chamber. What do you call his Carl Baugh?
Man, I can't remember what it was.
What do you call it? It was kind of like a submarine. Yeah, he's got a big steel chamber that he, under high pressure, plants grow crazy, animals grow, everything heals faster. Yeah.
Interesting.
Pre-flood, I think the whole world was a hyperbaric chamber under that crystal and canopy.
Yeah, I think that's what his argument was too on it, and how everything was able to be what it was pre-flood.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, they find fossils of animals that are huge by today's standards. They find fossil kangaroos 10 feet tall.
Yeah.
Fossil beavers, 8-foot beavers, bigger than a grizzly bear, have been found. Fossil grasshoppers 2 feet long. They couldn't breathe in today's world. The air's not thick enough, and there's not enough oxygen. But I think fossil ducks have been found that would be bigger than a horse, 550-pound duck. So I think dinosaurs are just simply big lizards that lived with Adam and Eve. Today, the world's biggest tortoise is 5 foot. They find fossil tortoises 15 foot. Of course, they put a sign by it that says 90 million years ago. No, teacher. This was before the flood came. So I think the evidence would show that everything was probably bigger before the flood. Fossil dragonflies with 5 foot or 3 foot wingspan on a dragonfly. They couldn't fly in today's air. The air's too thin. If you pressurize the air to double the atmospheric pressure that it is now, making the air effectively thicker, if that's a word you can use for air, and greater oxygen concentration, bigger birds could fly. They find pterodactyl bones with 50-foot wingspan. They couldn't possibly fly today. They couldn't flap fast enough. The air's too thin. But if you
Right.
had, again, crystalline canopy overhead and squeezed the air down to 10 miles, they could fly just fine. One of the arguments atheists use against Noah's flood, they say if it rained enough to cover Mount Everest, the heat generated, because when it rains, it releases heat into the air called the latent heat of condensation. They say if it rained enough to cover Mount Everest, it would cook the entire planet. I say, guys, first of all, it didn't rain to cover Mount Everest. Mount Everest wasn't there. Psalm 104 says at the end of the flood, the mountains arose, the valleys sank down, and the water rushed off. So Psalm 104, the mountains came up at the end of the flood because the crust of the earth was all busted up like an eggshell. And if you look at the world, it's interesting to note nearly all the mountain ranges follow the coastlines. The Appalachian Mountains follow the North Atlantic. The Rocky Mountains follow the North Pacific. The Alps or the Andes Mountains follow the South Pacific. I think the mountain ranges and oceans formed at the same time because of the same thing. The crust of the earth is shifting up and down. So how'd we get off on that? What was that about? The heat. It didn't rain to cover Mount Everest. It only rained 40 days. But the water kept coming up for 150 days because the fountains of the deep broke open. The water under the crust of the earth, put that slide up there, brother, the water came shooting out along the cracks, and the earth is still cracked up. Okay? That water shooting out underneath would launch rocks into space, and that's probably why we run around today and still run into meteor showers once in a while. We're still hitting rocks and stuff that were launched off the earth. That's why the moon's craters don't match. The craters on the near side looks like the moon got blasted with a shotgun, the bigger craters. On the backside, they're little bitty. I think that's correct. Then the water came shooting out from underneath. The crust of the earth would sink down into the hole, maybe half a mile, speeding up the spin of the earth just a little bit, like a diver tucking tighter. So then the air that used to be squeezed into 10 miles is now going to expand out to its current 40 or 50 miles. And when air expands, it absorbs heat. Get a can of hairspray or paint or anything, just hold the button down. It'll get freezing cold in your hand when you spray. You're relieving the pressure, and it absorbs the heat, and the can gets freezing cold. So I don't think there's a problem. Some of the creationist groups do not think there was a canopy overhead. I think they're creating a problem for themselves with the heat from the movement of the crust and the rain, latent heat of condensation. How do you get rid of the heat? Very simple. The air was expanding. That absorbed it, balanced it out.
I got something kind of off topic here, not necessarily off topic, but where, Dr. Hovind, do you stand with explaining how, I've been all over this country. Of course, you go to Utah, and that's where they're finding a lot of these Stegosaurus bones, or what we would call, or what was it? Not Stegosaurus, Triceratops. Right, they find a lot of them in the Grand Staircase. What is your explanation in how we find all these fossilized the animals in one spot? You look at the mammoths being found up in the Yukon right now in large quantity, and the Triceratops in Utah being found in large quantities. How is that explainable?
Well, go any place where there's a flood going on, or even a rapid movement of a river. It makes little eddies and currents, and all the junk goes together. Google plastic islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Because of the world turning, and the world is round and it turns, okay? The equator is going faster than the pole. So it creates eddies north and south of the equator. They're different. They flow different directions. But these ocean currents are swirling around. Just like we have prevailing wind currents, we have prevailing ocean currents. And all the trash goes to the middle and settles there. If there was a worldwide flood and 20 trillion animals died, they would tend to be swirled together into big piles, and when they get buried, they're all tangled up. They find fossil graveyards all over the world. I think maybe that was because of Noah's flood, the fossil graveyards. So I got pictures in here somewhere. If I knew that question was coming, I could have the answer ready.
Sorry, I just kind of came up with it.
My whole video series is 18 hours. I cover all this stuff in great with lots of pictures and proof, documentation where it comes from. Plastic, Joseph, Google plastic islands in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. You can see there's the western garbage patch, there's an eastern garbage patch. They're kind of all over the place, and it shows that water is rotating in a circle, causing it to stay where it's at.
Right. Well, during the flood, it'd do the same thing, only it wouldn't be plastic. It'd be animals and people. And when they finally get buried, they're in huge heaps. Type in fossil graveyards. Just Google that, fossil graveyards. There are hundreds of them all over the planet where they find bones all tangled up. The animals all swirled together and got buried in one time.
Yeah.
There are, I don't know how many, 40 or 50 fossil dinosaur graveyards in America. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
What'd you find there, Joseph?
There's 5 huge islands.
5 huge islands of plastic garbage floating in the ocean,
Wow.
swirling around, and it gathers in a heap. I think the same thing would happen during Noah's flood, not only with the animals, but with the trees. That's why there are huge coal mines. There are giant coal. There's coal in Wyoming, 300 feet thick.
Wow. Yeah.
How did that happen? Well, simple. If there was a worldwide flood,
Sure.
and all over the world, they find petrified trees even running through the coal. Put my slides up there, brother. I'll show them. Petrified trees are found all over the world, standing up. They're telling the kids the layers are different ages, and they got names for them, Jurassic and Triassic, and it's all baloney. Petrified trees in the standing position connecting all these layers are a pretty clear indication. The layers did not take millions of years to form. If each layer is a different tide, that's easy to explain. The tree could stand there for a year without rotting, while each tide puts a new layer around it. But polystrata fossils, they're called. They're found all over the world, running through. Up in central Alabama, I'm in southern Alabama. Central Alabama, there's a coal mine. A friend of mine's one of the managers there. There's his phone number if you want to call him, Dr. McDonald. He said, yeah, we find petrified trees standing up all the time, running right through seams of coal. Sometimes they'll start in one seam of coal, go through layers of rock, and go through another seam of coal. But the textbooks say the coal seams are different ages. He said, right now they're digging through two seams of coal called the Mary Lee Formation and the Blue Creek. He said, Brother Hovind, come on up, you can see it. We got all the petrified trees. He said, tree with letter H on it goes through the Mary Lee Formation. Tree with letter A, goes through the Blue Creek. But they also are in the same central layer. All the layers of coal, like at Specimen Ridge, 27 layers of fossil forest, Specimen Ridge, Wyoming. All the layers of coal, all the layers of everything formed in 1 year. There's a tree going through one seam of coal, then through another seam of coal. And they're telling the kids they're millions of years different in age. Hello, it's the same tree. They're not millions of years different in age. Joggins, Nova Scotia's got hundreds of petrified trees standing up, running through all the layers. So one of the biggest lies in world history is this stupid geologic column. It does not exist anywhere. They tell the kids, boys and girls, the top layer is younger. I love asking them the question. I say, guys, you're telling me this layer is younger than this layer. Well, yeah, the law of superposition. The top layer has to be younger. I said, would you please tell me where that layer came from? Where'd all that dirt come from? Did it come from outer space? The geologic column invented 200 years ago does not exist anywhere except the textbook and their imagination. There is no geologic column. Petrified trees in the vertical position are pretty clear indication the layers all formed quickly.
Yeah.
But the atheists will say, well, back in the Cretaceous period, I'm sorry, there is no such thing as a Cretaceous period. I'm sorry.
Have you ever been to the petrified forest in Arizona?
Oh, yeah. I love traveling. I've been all over the place. And
We were just there, my family and I were just there recently, and we were walking around. And you want to see a good indication of how it's implausible that those trees there, because of course they're advertising those as well, being millions of years old and whatever. But I'm walking around. There's at least one tree that I saw out there. I was like, I told my wife, I was like, look at this. And she's like, hey, let's just move on. But I was like, look at this. It's been actually cut down. It had a face cut on it and a back cut on it to cut the tree down before it was. And it was like, and we're teaching, and our kids are being taught that we have, that there was a metal age, and supposedly these things were way long before the metal age. And I was like, somebody cut that tree down before it got petrified. And but you can actually see that there is a tree there that has actual face cut and a back cut on it, and it's fallen over right in its spot, like it was logged. And most of those fields look like they're logged out there.
right, wood can petrify pretty quickly, and there's not frequently, but several times like that's been found. I've got a picture of a petrified log with a big gash cut in it. Somebody started chopping it down, and it petrified after they. Yeah, happens all the time.
There was one thing that I loved. You're probably familiar with the London hammer,
Oh yeah.
discovered by hikers in Texas, I believe. And they said it was over 400 million years old. And it was like a clear hammer. And it's like, so let's go back in our history books that you wrote about the Iron Age and when all these things came out. Because now you have a hammer that's 400 million years old. It doesn't make any sense.
If you ask them a simple question, how do you know it's 100 million years old? They would say, because it was found in this layer.
Right.
That would be probably the Silurian or Devonian. Oh yeah, 400 million years old. Well, how do you know that layer is that old? Well, we date the layer by the types of fossils we find in it. Well, how do you know the fossils are that old? Well, we date the fossils by the layer they come from. How do you know the layer is that old? Well, we date the layers by the fossils. And you date the fossils by the reasoning.
Well, I think it's kind of like I was watching this documentary on Exodus and how they were trying to time or put it on our knowledge of history. And basically what the guy went on to say is like, we wrote all these books on Egypt, in the 1900s, and all these theories that they used to write these history books were incorrect. But rather than go back and say these books that I, learned and got my PhD with are incorrect, we're just going to say, well, the new evidence is false, and it can't disprove what we've written already. And I think that's just a great example of how these theories come out, and even when you have proof that they're not correct, they just want to continue to stick with them because these documents and books that they've based their doctorate on, they don't want to say it's incorrect. Otherwise, their doctorate really means nothing.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, the atheists argue, they say, Hovind, you got a doctorate degree from a non-accredited school, which is true. I have three doctorates from a non-accredited school. Okay. I say, look, if you went to college and came out believing you came from a rock 4.6 billion years ago, I'm not too excited about your degree either. So let's just forget all that. Talk about the facts, okay? Right. The fact is, there is no geologic column. There is no fossil record. No such thing. There's fossils, trillions of them, but they don't talk, and there's no date stamped on them. They make up an interpretation. It's true you find fossils all over the world. I got hundreds of thousands of them in our museum here, but there's no date on them. All the fossils probably formed in the flood of Noah 4,500 years ago. So, geologic column does not exist. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, adding to that idea of the geological, the layers, being that we're dismissing even the most recent event that we have faced as the Dust Bowl, and where did all that dirt get blown to and from? Right. Which would obviously disrupt this geological layer that we're discussing now. And according to scholars, secular scholars.
Well, moving the dirt with the Dust Bowl, it blew it from here to here. It doesn't change the age of it.
No.
If you shuffle a deck of cards, is the top card now younger? No, all the cards are the same age. All the Dust Bowl did is move dirt from one place to another. It didn't change the age of it. That's why I say there's no such thing as a geologic column. No such thing.
That was my point exactly. Yeah.
So Dr. Hovind, what all? So you kind of touched at the beginning of the podcast what you guys have to offer out there. What all do you guys have going on out there, at your museum and stuff? What all do you guys do out there? What do y'all have to offer? What all's going on there?
Well, we have groups come all the time. We had about 100 people the day before yesterday and a large youth group today I gave tours to. We have 140 acres. It's an old gravel pit. We have 17 lakes and ponds for fishing and swimming and boating. We have zip lines over the lakes. Lots of fun stuff to do in the lakes. We have a 12,000 square foot science center based on the 7 days of creation. Day one, God said, let there be light. We got a bunch of cool science experiments about light, electricity, magnetism, gravity. Day two, he made the air. We have, a Hyperic Chamber, what high pressure air would do. We have a Bernoulli blower. We have all kinds of stuff on air pressure. I taught science for years. Day three, he made the plants. We got a whole section about plants and how they grow. and why trees have rings. And there are 60 different kinds of oak trees in the world, and they might have had a common ancestor called an oak tree. That does not prove, like the textbook says, boys and girls. Let's see. Oak trees are related to sharks and whales and elephants. This is stupid. This isn't science. This is propaganda. That's all it is. So our science center is amazing. 12,000 square feet. We give jeeps. We give tours around the property. Take the doors off. Take the roof off. Like Jurassic Park. We have a blast on. We have 3 jeeps.
That's
we give
awesome.
tours in. It's a lot of fun. If we have a playground tour where everything has a science lesson. We have a little bitty airport, we call it, where we make paper airplanes that go 300 feet. Blow your kids' minds. Had a bunch of kids there today. Did you see mine go 300 feet? Yep. And we try to make everything have a science lesson with a spiritual application. That's the way Jesus would teach. He'd say, consider the lilies. Okay, why do I want to consider a lily? Oh, they're beautiful, and they don't even worry about their clothes. God provides for them. We have cool science lessons with the spiritual application like that. We have a playground tour with all kinds of fun stuff. We have a petting zoo, a farm tour. You go up and pet all the animals. They're all friendly. We got a 17-year-old tortoise. He's about, what's Turbo? 3.5 foot.
Wow.
Yeah. He spends all day walking around looking for Mrs. Turbo. She ain't there because she's $4,000. So he's going to be a bachelor for a while. But it's just, we've got 25 cabins you can stay in. It's free. After 2 days, we'll put you to work. Whole place built by volunteers and donations. We're in our church here. We have service every night on our channels. It's Genesis Baptist Church, Independent Baptist Church. You can go to our YouTube channel, Genesis Baptist Church. Let's see, is that on the first slide? Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's all our channels. We're on Facebook and Rumble and Brighton and TikTok. And
my goodness.
so I do a lot of debates against atheists. I've had 362 debates with atheists. The most famous one is where I was debating 3 atheists at the same time at Embry-Riddle University in Jacksonville, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical. One atheist said, where did God come from? My 2-minute answer has 900 million views.
I'm one of those.
Type in, where did God come from? What do you mean come from? The question's invalid. It's like asking, why are elephants orange? They're not orange, okay? God didn't come from. God's not limited by time, space, or matter. We are. We're stuck in time. So are you.
Yep.
Have you ever wished you could go back 5 seconds to undo the dumb thing you just did? Yeah, just 5 seconds. Can't do it. We're stuck in time. Sorry.
Yeah.
God's not. This is not 2024 in heaven. God's not stuck in time at all. So anyway, I love debating atheists. I'll debate any of them. Bring them on. Your channel, my channel, their channel. I'll take them on. I believe the Bible's true, and it's time for Christians to stand up and say so. I believe this book from cover to cover. I even believe the cover. It says Kent Hovind. I believe that.
Well, there you have it. We're getting to the end of this. I wanted to ask one more question, especially after talking to you now about this, because we as Christians, we're going to face persecution. We know that, much like what you've faced throughout your many years in evangelistic ministry and debates and all that. And, even just a simple search on you've faced scrutiny over and over again. So how in the world did you get labeled a conspiracy theorist and an anti-Semitic?
I don't understand. Brother, it's easy to slap a label on somebody. Okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Anybody can do that. The disciples had that problem all through the Bible. Jesus had that problem. They accused him of all kinds of things, being a tax protester. Does your master pay taxes, Right. And so Jesus was accused. This is standard warfare 101. They slap a label on you. They call you a name. We have if you go to Genesis Baptist Church on YouTube, go to the playlist. At the bottom, one of the things to look for in the playlist is answering the rumors. When somebody puts a label on me and says, "Oh, you're this or you're that," we do a quick video and answer it. So depending, when Paul finally got to Rome in Acts chapter 28. He had a long, difficult trip to get there. He finally showed up in Rome. He asked the people there in Acts 28, have you heard about me and our ministry? They said, all we know is everywhere it is spoken against. All we know, Paul, is everybody hates you. Oh,
yeah.
That must be a good thing.
Yeah. Well, good answer. Good answer. Dr. Hovind, we thoroughly enjoy having you on here. And I hope that someday soon we can come down and visit you.
Well, if you come down and visit, we'll have you on my program. You can sit right here and we'll tell about your show. Get you some views.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Hopefully, we're not that far away. I don't think either one of us are.
No. Yeah.
What's that?
I warned you about the well water, right? About your babies be born naked if you drink well water.
Yeah, that's okay.
I forgot to warn you about the tea. My wife refuses to listen to me. I say, honey, iced tea is dangerous. There was an Indian. This Indian one time drank 4 gallons of iced tea. Mm-hmm. That night, he drowned in his teepee.
Oh, man.
I taught high school 15 years, okay? It messed up my brain, okay? So give me a little slack here.
Well, they got some great dad jokes. I enjoy them.
Good. Here, dad joke loading right there.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, thank you for having me on, guys. Come visit anytime. We believe the Bible is true. Evolution is stupid. 2 Peter 3, he said the scoffers in the last days are going to be willingly ignorant about the creation, about the flood, and about the coming judgment of God. I wrote a book and did a video series on, what on earth is about to happen, about the future. What does Daniel and Revelation say is going to happen? We're headed for trouble, the tribulation time. I want to check out that on drdino.com. See what you think.
Right, don't scare me. We talk a lot about that on here. I'm ready for Jesus coming back.
Oh, me too.
That's right.
All right.
Hey, Dr. Hovind, stay on for just a minute as we close this out, and then stay on afterwards until all the tracks get done loading. But I'm going to close this out here. Guys, thanks for joining us on Undaunted Pursuit podcast. We'll see y'all next time. See you guys.
Adios.
Peace.
Hey guys, I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode with Dr. Kent Hovind. He was such a pleasure to talk to. We actually had a really good time having him on, and I just wanted to get on here and tell you guys you can check us out on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter or X, I guess, and TikTok. Go check out all of our stuff. Subscribe, like, anywhere you can. Leave us a good rating, good review. And if you guys have any questions, concerns, whichever way you want to message us, you can message us on social media or at undauntedpursuit@gmail.com or mail@undauntedpursuit.com. We would love to hear from you guys. Share this episode with somebody this week. Let's see here. Is there anything else that I'm forgetting here? Oh, the music at the end of this episode. Guys, make sure you go and follow their links too. You can see all these links to Dr. Hovind and the artists we use at the end of these episodes. You can see all their links in the show notes. So make sure you guys go show your support for them as well. We love using these artists and love having their music and showcasing their music on here. So in the meantime, guys, have a good rest of your week. We'll see you guys next time on Undaunted Pursuit podcast. See ya.
I hope you know, my friend, it's never too late. That when you're feeling lost or low, I'm here at 988. Come out of the darkness. Come out of the darkness. Come on out of the darkness. And no, it's never too late to come out of the darkness. Come on out of the darkness. Come on out of the darkness. And no, it's never too late. I'm here at 988. So come out of the darkness. Hold your life, don't let it go, 'cause even hope takes time to grow. And there is something beautiful, and I know this life gets hard, but I hope you know, my friend, that it's never too late. That when you're feeling lost or low, I'm here at 988. So come out of the darkness. Come out of the darkness. Come on out of the darkness. And no, it's never too late to come out of the darkness. Come on out of the darkness. Come on out of the darkness. And no, it's never too late. I'm here at 988. So come out of the darkness. Oh. been lost, although I'm here in 980. So come out of the darkness.